Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Melissa if you're new here, and for today's video we're going to be adding my Cebu blue here. These are cuttings that I've had in my prop box, and we're going to be adding this guy onto this moss pole that I made here, and I'm going to show you the steps that I do and how I add a plant on a moss pole. So let's go over some of the supplies that you need. You need obviously a moss pole. This is one that I made the other day. I do have a tutorial. I can link it here for you if you're curious how I make my moss poles. I use plastic netting and I just zip tie the ends together and I fill with moss. That's pretty much all that you need to make one of these. And I'll leave the netting linked and maybe the moss that I use linked in the description for you too, in case you're curious. So you're gonna need your pole. This pole is actually pretty sturdy by itself. You really don't need to add a stake yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and add one in this video just to show you. And you're gonna need a nursery pot. This is a pot that I'm going to use. This is a 5-inch nursery pot, and this is the stake that I have. It's a pretty, I think this is a 4-foot stake, so I'll have a little extra room at the top. And you're going to need a heavy ceramic, and this is going to fit your nursery pot so that this is like sturdy enough that your plastic nursery pot doesn't tip over, because plastic netting isn't as sturdy, so you're going to need something heavy besides a nursery pot to fit this inside. And oh goodness, you're also going to need zip ties. These are 4-inch cable ties, and you're going to need this to secure the stake to the pole. And you're going to need some scissors and plant Velcro. And what I like to use is, these are called greening pins, and I get this in bulk off Amazon, but they're little pins like this, and they hook into the pole and your cutting goes inside. So this is what I use to secure the cuttings into the moss, and I'll show you how I do that. So yeah, that is everything that you're going to need. Oh, and I forgot, you're going to need your potting mix here too. This, I just made a new batch up, so this is like my normal chunky mix that I make. So yeah, let's get started. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to fill this with some soil just to get started. And be prepared, this is a messy job. I always make a mess when I'm doing moss poles. It's just guaranteed, especially making them. The sphagnum moss gets everywhere. And so I have a little bit of dirt here. And next I'm going to fill this bottom part with soil. And there's not an easy way to do this. It's just going to get messy. So I kind of try and fill it over the pot. That way any extra soil can fall into the pot. Yeah, there's just not an easy way to do this. It's just messy. I just fill it the best that I can. And then we are going to slide it down into the pot. And I try to center this into the pot, just like in the center like that. And keep in mind, you're gonna have a back of the pole, like right here where it's zip tied. This is the back where it overlaps here. And this is the front of the pole. So just keep that in mind before you start to pot up your cuttings. You want to have the cuttings in the front side and the overlapping in the back, because that's where we're going to put the stake in the back. And then this is not sturdy yet, so I'm going to fill up the back side with soil first. And I'm going to go ahead and sit him in the ceramic just so that he's a little bit more stable. Because I need to take the moss off of my cuttings here. I need to take all this moss off. So I'm going to do this real quick and then I will show you how I put him into the pot. All right, I just untangled all the moss. I have four cuttings here. Look at those crazy roots. They have been in there for so long. And a lot of them, like that one has a little bit of a growth point starting. So once that growth point starts, I'll be able to start attaching that cutting to the moss. This one has already started growing here. So I'm going to be attaching this portion to the pole and it's going to continue growing that way. And this one has started growing here too. And this one has started, this is a new growth here. So yeah. I will have 4 cuttings. I want to do all these kind of on the front side of the pole together and I'll show you that. All right, I have my pole back. I'm going to use this for some support since it's a little heavy. And this moss is wet, so when the moss is wet, the pole is a bit heavier. And I'm going to bring this closer so that you guys can see. So right now in the front, I don't really have enough soil. So I'm going to get the cuttings down to like the soil level and then I'll fill up around the roots. And then I'll be attaching them up the pole. So let's see. Try and get all their roots down in there. And normally I would not let these roots get this tall or this long, but I have been so lazy with my cuttings in my prop box because I've been trying to avoid adding more plants to my collection right now because of the move, and it's just taking way longer than either of us thought. And so I have all of this stuff I need to get done, plants and repotting, and it's just like never in my wildest dreams did I think that we would still be here and it's almost March. I just never would have thought that. So I just need to get started on my plant care. I can't wait until after we move because then I'm going to be so busy with packing and everything else. All right, so I kind of added them into the front and then I'm going to just fill up with soil around just to get them a little bit more stable in here. I am a messy plant repotter. I get stuff everywhere. I am not clean by any means when it comes to repotting. Clearly the moss pole went flying across the room. So I just packed the soil in here. I mean, it's pretty chunky. I just want to fill all the gaps. Because when I water this, it's going to compress some of the soil, so I'm just trying to get it packed in here pretty well. Okay. So before I secure the cuttings, I'll show you how I do that. I'm going to make this guy a little bit more, I mean, he's pretty stable, but I think I'm going to add the stake first to the back of this, and I'll show you how I do that. and then I will secure the cuttings. All right, so this is again like a 4-foot stake, and I'm just gonna add this to the back here of the pole. And we don't have anything in the soil, just dirt, so I'm just going to press this down into the dirt as far as it will go, and as close as the pole, as close to the pole as I can get it. And I'm actually going to bring this a little closer to you. So I usually just kind of put this where the zip ties meet, where that overlaps here. And then I'm going to zip tie this pole, the stake, to the actual pole, and I'll zip tie it all the way up. I probably use like, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 zip ties. I just skip like 6 or 7 inches and then do another zip tie. So that was one. I just kind of go up every few. And I'll finish zip tying this, and then at the very end I'll show you what the pole looks like and everything. But yeah, I just keep going up the pole and zip tying. All right, and then next I'm going to use these greening pins to secure the cuttings to the pole. So since I have 4, some of these guys aren't climbing yet, so that's okay. So what we're going to do is, since this one has a little aerial root kind of forming from being in that moss, I'm going to try and squeeze that into this moss against that pole so it can grow into there. And I'm going to pin this into the moss. These cuttings and these stems are very tiny, so he's going to take a bit to kind of climb and mature. So that one, so there's really only 2 of them I can do that with, because the rest of them haven't really started climbing yet. So I have one more I'm going to kind of secure into the moss a bit. And then sometimes I'll use this plant Velcro to attach the cuttings to the pole, because sometimes these clips won't stay very well until the roots start attaching into the moss. So I like to give the cuttings, when they're just kind of starting out, a little extra support to help guide those aerial roots into the moss. And then once they're sort of attached, then I can remove the Velcro. Just makes it a little bit easier for them. And that way the pins won't slide around. That's why I like the Velcro, because you can adjust it and take it away and move it anytime that you need to. So yeah, I think that looks good. So I'm going to water this here, and I'll show you what it looks like up close. Going to give this guy a water. And it's dripping through now, so I'm gonna let this drain. All right, and here is the pole all finished. Look how pretty it is. I cannot wait for these vines to start climbing. And as they grow, like each aerial root that forms, I attach into the moss with the pins. So I'll kind of give you a closer look here. I did one vine here that I pinned, and then the other one that I pinned, get these leaves out of the way, is that one down there. So these vines, this one's going to continue growing from here, and I'll continue attaching it as it grows up. And I technically don't water these poles when they're just starting out, because there's not really any aerial roots in the moss yet. So when this soil is dry, I will water the pot like it was a normal plant without the pole there. And then once they start climbing and their roots are attaching into the moss, then I'll start watering from the pole, from the actual top part of it. And I'll just like mist this area to keep this moss a little bit wet, but I'm not going to really water this pole too much because there's no plants up here, so all this moss can stay dry. Like, it's not a big deal to keep this part wet because there's not any roots in the actual moss yet. And my stake is pretty tall because these are 3-foot poles and these are 4-foot. So when I extend onto here, I'll have like room for the pole to attach to that new moss pole. So yeah, I'll usually extend once they kind of reach this point, and then I'll fill this with moss and extend. But yeah, I'll keep an eye on these. I'm going to give these guys some bright light. I'm going to put him in front of my window so he can receive some light. And yeah, I'll keep an eye on this and add the cuttings as they climb. And this is the Monstera siltepecana. I made a reel on this one for my Instagram, and I did the same thing with, you can see I pinned the vines, like the aerial roots here, and I'm going to try and keep this area a bit moist. And then I velcroed around the bottom part just to secure the cuttings a little bit more so they don't move around as they grow. And then once the aerial roots start attaching, you can remove the pins and the Velcro. So yeah, these are 2 I just did. And yeah, I have a lot more poles I'm going to do, so I just wanted to get these started. These were props that, this one has been in my prop box way too long, and this one was a water prop, so I just wanted to get these on a pole and get them started. So yeah, I'm just happy to see them on a pole now, and I can just watch them climb. All right, thank you for watching me add these cuttings to a moss pole. If you have any questions, just leave a comment down below. I have a lot of information on moss poles on my Instagram, as well as reels and on my stories. So if I'm gonna do more moss pole content on my channel, so I did an extension reel on my Instagram if you're curious how I extend the poles. And when it comes time to extend one, I'll definitely film one for YouTube so that I can have that on here. If you have any questions, just let me know. Just leave a comment down below and I'll be happy to get back to you. And yeah, thank you so much for watching another one of my videos, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. It is like 11:30 at night and I'm filming this video, so if it's a little crazy and I look a little wild, it's because it's so late. And if you hear snoring, it is not me, it is my 150-pound St. Bernard, so 155-pound St. Bernard. It is not me snoring, so if you hear snoring, it is the dog. All right, so this is my Cebu blue here. Oh my goodness, whoops. Okay, let's do that again. Did you just see that? That pole literally flew across the table. Oh my God, I don't even want to see the dirt over there. Okay, gosh, I just have one heck of a mess to clean up. Like, look at this. This is just bonkers. I don't even know what happened. I just need to refilm this entire thing again. Oh my goodness. There is dirt all over that floor and the cats are just having a party. Oh my God, look at all this dirt. Oh goodness, this is why I do not film this late at night. This was just a disaster from the beginning. Okay, we're just gonna pretend that this just didn't happen and we're gonna start over. Okay, take 3. I don't even know what's going on. Okay.